What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Jared Barnes Show. I am your host, Jared Barnes. Nate is here. Micah is here. We have a good episode in store for you today. First thing we're going to hit on is the Super Bowl recap. We'll talk about the first 58 minutes of the game, while it was a really good game, the turf situation. We'll hit on what did we learn this NFL season. We'll talk about Derek Carr getting cut by the Raiders a little bit, Eagles losing both their coordinators. Got a little XFL talk today. And we'll end with a rank 3. With that being said, we will hit our Super Bowl recap. Now, with that being said, it was a fun Super Bowl. It was a good Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was the first quarterback in Super Bowl history to run for 3 touchdowns. He's done that all year. He's dominated in the run game. But he had a great day passing the football as well. The issue is he had a turnover. And while that turnover might not necessarily be completely his fault, it helped the Chiefs capitalize, and they had a defensive touchdown in the first half due to that. And the Chiefs didn't just capitalize on defense. They capitalized in all facets of the game. Their offense was clicking in the second half. They had a great special teams return in the second half. And it was all day you could just see this slow burn and build watching that game. It was like people were expecting the Chiefs to come out and just get, I think, railed. And that did not happen. Like, at one point before the Super Bowl started, 70-something% of the money during the week leading up to the Super Bowl was on the Eagles to win the game, according to the sports books. That was a telltale sign that they were not going to win the game. Not on the biggest bet-on event in human history. The sports books are going to win. So the Chiefs won the game. And it was a great game for 58 minutes, like we mentioned. Eagles defense couldn't get a single stop in the second half. The Chiefs O-line allowed 0 sacks throughout the entire game, even though that was supposedly a historic defensive front. Everyone's issues comes in, though, with the holding call that was committed by James Bradberry. And he admitted in his post-game press conference that he did hold Juju and that he hoped the refs would have just kind of let it slide, that he hoped the refs would have let him play on because they had kind of done that all game. And a lot of people have talked. Dean Blandino was on, I believe it was Dan Patrick, and he said if it's a call, that's a call you make in the first quarter, so you have to make that call in the fourth quarter. And I agree with Dean Blandino. It was a hold, and people were saying it wasn't a catchable ball. That only applies on pass interferences, so it doesn't matter on a hold. But at the same time, at that point in the game, you just wish that call would not have happened because I think why everybody's mad is because it feels like we were maybe robbed of a all-time Super Bowl ending. Instead, we got the ending we had. With that being said, I don't think it was a hold. I don't disagree with the call. I wish it wasn't made, but I understand why it was made. I'm not upset about it. Didn't really want the Eagles to win. We're in the middle of a Chiefs dynasty, and not that I wanted that Chiefs dynasty to continue to build and gain more momentum. I mean, it was inevitable. I thought the Chiefs were going to win, but with that being said, Nate, how did you feel about the James Bradberry holding call?
I mean, I think it was a hold, so you got to call it. But in that sense, I think I don't think it mattered in the long run anyway, just because the Chiefs were going on a run. The Eagles were not clicking. Their offense was stalling. They couldn't stop the Chiefs on offense. The Chiefs are probably going to score on that drive anyway. Was that third down?
Well, I believe, yeah, that was.
Right? Yeah, you're not on.
I think it was second down.
Second down.
Yeah.
I mean, so they have at least one more down, and then if not, it's a field goal. But yes, we did get robbed a little bit of that pretty nice ending. It was third?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so then that's pretty crucial, just because the Eagles get a full minute and a half, whatever, just to run down the field and try to win that game. So, I mean, it kind of sucks, but to be fair, when the Eagles lose, America wins. Shout out to Star right here. But yeah, that's how I felt about it. I don't think it mattered in the long run, but yeah. So that's what Micah, you got anything? Or
I mean, the only thing that I could maybe add to that, it was a hold, yeah. But at the same time, if you're not calling it the whole game, why be nitpicky and call it then? I mean, he said that it was he came out and said he was holding him, but it was very weak. It was a weak call, and if you're gonna if you're not calling those at the very beginning, why are you calling it now? Like, it was just very inconsistent.
There was one of those in the first quarter, actually.
Yeah.
Like, Bradbury was actually holding Juju in the first quarter. They didn't call it.
Right.
Everybody saw that play and was like, oh, the refs are letting the boys play today.
Right.
Everybody was excited, like, in their own head, that saw that and actually knew what happened and, like, realized the call wasn't made. And then, like, in the fourth quarter, they made the call. Very interesting. People say that the refs love Mahomes and help Mahomes all the time. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not here to decide that. I don't think the NFL is rigged. Not
No.
me, but yeah.
No. And like another thing, if you rewatch it, Mahomes way overthrew. Like he was not going to get that in the first place. And a little bit of a tug.
Juju's an athlete. He might have.
He's an athlete, but I mean, did you see how far over that was?
It was very far over.
That was pretty far over in the first place. And I mean, a little bit of shirt tugging, I mean, wasn't gonna have him catch it. So either way, the Chiefs were gonna win, I think, personally, in my opinion. But it was a call that, you know, it was a good call, but why are you calling it now? That's my only thing. So
Yeah, I mean, I think with Brady being out of the league now, they kind of need somebody else to fill in that power vacuum that Brady's going to fill. And so, like, if a ref needs somebody to bail out, it's probably going to be Patrick from here on out. He's probably going to be the GOAT of this next generation. So we'll see how it goes down.
I mean, you just brought up an interesting conversation topic. I think, am I? Can you hear me? All right, I can't hear myself, so that's why. But you mentioned that, like, it feels like Mahomes is set to be the next GOAT of this generation, and it's like when you look at his situation that they're currently in with, I mean, he's under contract till 2032. Like, my back? We back? All right. It says I got terrible Wi-Fi reception. Don't understand why. Could be my VPN is on, but we're not sponsored by any VPN company, so I'm not going to say who it is. All right, turned it off. We'll see if that helps. But with that being said, like, you brought up that Mahomes is like the GOAT kind of conversation, and then, like, you look at his stats, you look at how this team is built. This team is a team that literally looks like they can be together for quite a few years because Patrick Mahomes is on a friendly contract. He just won a second MVP. Like, it seems like he's unstoppable at this point. Like, he's 5 years into his career. He's been in 5 AFC Championship games. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings. He's been an All-Pro. I mean, he's 6 years into his career technically, but five AFC Championships in 5 years as a starter, 2 Super Bowl rings, 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. When you put him on the field, if there is a lead, it's safe. And if another team has the lead on them, no matter how big that lead is, it is not safe.
24-0.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the only person that will stop and could stop Patrick Mahomes, there's 2 teams I have in mind. One is whatever team Joe Burrow is on, whether it's he continues with the Bengals or that he finds another team. The other team, I look to the NFC and I see San Francisco. And I don't know how Brock Purdy is going to mature or if Trey Lance is going to mature or Jimmy Garoppolo runs that system. I don't think it matters who runs that system. I think that team is built for future playoff success. They have a great defense, one of the best offensive talents in the NFL. And I think, and they're all pretty young. Christian McCaffrey's pretty young. Debo's pretty young. I mean, if they rock with Brock Purdy and he's the guy that everyone thinks he is, I mean, that's a team that could really shake up the Chiefs dynasty if they really wanted to.
Agreed. Like, I mean, not even bad turf can hinder the Chiefs dynasty at this point. And that was an issue for everybody all night in that game, was the playing surface of the field. This is a playing surface that the NFL spent $800,000 on. They grew this grass for 2 years with the help of Oklahoma State University. Shout out Oklahoma for giving us awful grass. But it is Oklahoma State, not Oklahoma, so, you know, maybe that's why. That is why. But I don't know what the issue. They put the paint on that week of the game. You had the logo, you had the teams. You definitely could have put that on a week prior. That way the paint was supposedly dry. I mean, people said the paint was maybe a little wet. It was definitely wet because there was literally stains on guys' pants. So the paint was still wet somehow. I think they I don't know if they overwatered the field, what exactly happened, but it looked like everybody was on a slip and slide the whole game. I mean, Jalen Hurts' Hail Mary, I've heard people talking about it around our campus this week. What happened on that throw? Like I've literally been asked, like, what happened on that throw? Jalen Hurts' front foot, that was his plant foot on that throw, literally slipped and he almost did a split while trying to throw that Hail Mary. I think that ball might have traveled another 20 yards if his foot does not slip. Like he might have overthrown his receivers. He had such a heave there, but his front foot slipped and he couldn't. And then like defensive linemen struggled all night, but then again like the Chiefs offensive linemen have the same issue. So both teams have that same issue, and the Chiefs didn't really seem to be hindered by it, and the Eagles kept changing cleats and literally could not figure it out. That definitely played a major factor in the second half. Like a major factor. And I think that could have been some of the difference for some of those older dudes that on the Eagles defensive line that maybe aren't as fast because they're getting older and they're fatigued and it's been a long season, literally the longest in NFL history. They technically had a bye, but still one of the longest seasons in NFL history. And then fourth quarter rolls around. These guys have been on the field for a while in the second half. Quick way to tire you out. And then, Mahomes has an extra half-hour break to fix it up his ankle. It's all worked out for the Chiefs in that game. I don't know what went wrong with the playing surface. Let's maybe do a little more investing in like actual proper grass and make sure this can be played on, like before the game kicks off. Like that I don't understand how they screwed that up as bad as they did. That being said, I don't know if you guys have anything to say about the playing surface, but that really kind of wraps it up for me with the playing surface. So with that being said, what did we learn in the NFL this year? Now, I have some thoughts. Me and Nate were talking about this a little bit the other day. I don't think you can ever count out the Chiefs. That's one of the big things I learned this year. Feels like in the preseason, everybody thought the Chiefs weren't even going to win their division. And here we are. Yeah, here we are. End of the season. Super Bowl's over. They're the champs. Top of the league. Again. When their division was supposed to be the toughest division in football, and it turned out not to be, I don't think you can count out the Chiefs. Nate had an interesting takeaway, and I'll let him hit this one because this was his, but I thought this was a great one.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is this is probably one of the bigger off seasons I remember in the NFL in recent memory. I mean, you had quarterbacks changing, you had, teams getting elite wide receivers, and like you had a whole division that felt like a super team. And like nobody expected like the NFC East to be what they were, but they were dominant. And everyone expected, is it the AFC East?
Yes.
AFC East.
AFC West.
AFC West. Yeah.
The Chiefs are?
Yeah.
Yeah, AFC West.
AFC West to be so dominant. I mean, so you have in the Chiefs in that division, you have the Chiefs, you have the Raiders, you have the Chargers, and then you have the Broncos. And so the Broncos got a quarterback that has won a Super Bowl before. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't think that they were going to be as good as people were hyping them up to be, but I didn't think they were going to be this bad. I mean, when you're getting roasted by Patrick Starr on Nickelodeon's channel, like, might need to think about hanging up the cleats. It's a rough year for him. I actually was a big believer in the Raiders, to be completely honest, because they made the playoffs after the whole fiasco with emails and all the random stuff that was going on, and they still made the playoffs, still managed to make the playoffs. And then in the offseason, they get Devontae Adams, one of the top receivers. They get Chandler Jones from the Cardinals. And I thought, like, this is shaping up to be a team that can compete with these other teams. They had a great offensive line, and I thought, this is probably the year for the Chiefs. And then they go out and suck. And then the Chargers, who everyone thought was going to be really great, have a great offensive talent, they go out and blow 27-0 lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so I think what is safe to say is trades will not fix your team if you don't have a good coach, a good GM, a good culture around your team. Like, for instance, the Eagles. Like, the Eagles made one little trade, and they got Jordan Davis. I mean, not huge moves. Like, those moves shouldn't make you go to the Super Bowl in and of itself.
Well, they did get AJ Brown as well.
Yeah, well, that's the trade I was mentioning.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because like they didn't make any other major moves like at quarterback and so like, but they had a winning culture because they went to the Super Bowl 2 years prior. They were building something from the ground up. They had, aging stars, but they were still stars. Like they were building something up for this moment. And they just needed two pieces in order to make it over that hump. They almost made it over the hump, but they ran into Patrick Mahomes. Don't count the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest takeaway from this is trades won't fix your team. Have a winning culture, have a good coach first, and then figure it out later. Same thing with the Cardinals. Bad coach doesn't fix your team. Micah, you got anything?
I would say my next biggest takeaway is the only real other takeaway that I really have, and that's that good coaching matters more than anything else. Experience helps in that aspect as well. You see that second half of that Super Bowl. You see the second half of the Jaguars Chargers game. There's quite a few games across the board where you see these comebacks, these teams were dead and out of it. Yet they persevered and win. And where experience helps, like you look at this Chiefs game, for example. This is a Chiefs team that wasn't supposed to be really all that good. They've had this same core of coaches for a while, and they've only added to it. Matt Nagy is on the roster for the Chiefs this year. He wasn't there last year. Matt Nagy, decent offensive coach, was really good in Kansas City with Andy Reid, went off to be his own thing, wasn't necessarily all that great. Maybe not. Everybody's not a good head coach. Maybe he could be again someday, but would hope Eric Bieniemy gets a job before him. But Bieniemy's been the offensive coordinator there for, I feel like, 4 years. And he's calling plays. Like, Andy Reid said that he's calling plays. So it's not like that was everybody's excuse before. So he's been there. And their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, he's been there for quite a few years as well. Like, there's no turnover there. And there they are, Super Bowl champions. Andy Reid, been in the league as a head coach for 20 years plus. I mean, coaching, it matters. It matters big time. Because you get into the playoffs and you have a young coach that doesn't know what's going on and isn't like the most confident, you get bounced in the first round, even if you have a third string quarterback like Micah's Dolphins. Like, it matters big time. And yeah, I just think that's like the biggest takeaway. Like, the Patriots realized that this offseason as well, and that's why they added Bill O'Brien. The Steelers need to realize that and add somebody else on the offense to help out Kenny Pickett because Matt Canada is not it. Literally, that was the reason that this was even my takeaway, is because as I wrote it, I went, oh, Matt Canada. That's part of the reasons why the Steelers stunk this year. We won't go there. I've been there enough. I've been there enough. I do not need to go down this road.
Matt Canada has done as much for the Steelers offense as the country has done in the grand scale of the world. Absolutely nothing, if not a detriment to the rest of it. Sorry, Canada. But it's true.
Not talk about aliens or anything going on with the UFOs around the country. But don't know why. I just wanted to bring it up. I had to slightly drop it in there, but we'll move on from that. With that being said, Derek Carr was cut today. I mean, yesterday, technically. And we all saw it coming because today is the day that he would have had to get paid his guaranteed money. $40-something million would have been guaranteed today. The Raiders said, we're not even going to push it to the limit. We're going to cut him the day prior so that everybody knows we're moving on. Derek Carr decided he didn't want to be traded to the Saints, even though last week we talked about it. He visited the Saints. So that was an interesting move. But maybe I understand it because the Saints' future is kind of messed up with their cap space. They don't have really I don't know about their pick situation, but I know they don't have a first-round pick this year. They gave that up to the Eagles. And it's not a great situation for a quarterback to necessarily be in. I think there's other teams in that division, literally every team in that division, that would be a better situation for him to go to. We talked about it last week. I don't want to harp on it too long, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where Derek Carr goes because he was cut and because he's been in the league for 4+ years or something like that, I was reading, I don't fully understand it. He can sign anywhere immediately. Like, he can sign the second he's cut officially. He can announce the next team he's going to immediately and sign his contract before free agency even starts. He's got a massive advantage here. And other teams that might have some quarterback issues going on would probably like to know what's going on with their quarterback. But other quarterbacks have to go do darkness retreats to figure out what their future is going to be like. But moving on from Derek Carr, I like Derek, but, you know, it's definitely interesting. I don't necessarily know where he fits all that great. I think, especially now, because I don't know what his contract's going to be like. What is a team going to willing to sign Derek Carr for? And I'm not really sure. That being said, I talked about how one of my takeaways was about how coaching matters in the NFL. And we're going to find out how much coaching matters next year for the Eagles. They lost both their coordinators to head coaching gigs yesterday, in the same day. Colts hired Shane Steichen to be their head coach. And then just a few hours later, the Cardinals hired Jonathan Gannon to be theirs. I think those are both really good hires. People that are mad about Jonathan Gannon's defense folding down the stretch, we've seen other people get hired that were coordinators where their teams folded down the stretch as well. Didn't really matter. They're not the ones playing on the field. They're just the ones calling the plays that the players aren't executing.
Dan Quinn, I mean.
Exactly. Like, if their players aren't executing, there's a problem. I mean, the offense was executing on a high level. I'd like to see what the Colts do moving forward with Steichen and who they're going to bring in. I think everybody was excited that it wasn't Jeff Saturday in Indianapolis. But outside of that, I think that's the only, like, Indianapolis fans were excited it's not Jeff Saturday. I don't think anybody else around the country cares because I don't think anybody else around the country fears the Colts. Even though they have actual, like, they have a really talented roster, but nobody's scared of them because everybody knows they don't have a quarterback. And Matt Ryan hasn't announced his retirement yet, so until that happens, Colts fans are scared. And the Cardinals don't have a quarterback either. Kyler Murray's got a torn ACL. He probably won't play the majority of next year. Both these teams might not be great next year. So we're going to see how much coaching matter, you know, like, who can they bring in to help make these teams better coaching-wise? And who can the Eagles hire in place of them to replicate what they did this year? Because it's a big deal to lose both your coordinators. Like, and Nick Sirianni's only in his second year of coaching. That just says how good of the staff he hired, that two of his coordinators already have had coaching gigs based on the success that team had in 2 years. It's impressive stuff. It's impressive stuff. But really, it was a pretty dry NFL news week. Very dry NFL news week. And not a lot going on. But there is a new spring league coming this Saturday, which I'm looking forward to a lot. I'm going to go all in on Instagram posting about stuff like this. Actually, tomorrow, I've been doing some research today. I'll upload 4 separate YouTube videos along with this episode tomorrow, talking about teams in the North Division and who they are and, like, just some stuff you might need to know about those teams. With that being said, though, I just like to introduce every team to you and maybe some interesting rules you'd like to hear. So the Arlington Renegades are the first team I'd like to introduce, and their head coach is Bob Stoops. This isn't a team I necessarily have done a lot of research for, but because I haven't done the South Division yet, but I like Bob Stoops. I like the Renegades. I like their logo. It's sweet, and I'm a fan of Bob Stoops. Next team is San Antonio Brahmas. Their head coach is Hines Ward, former Steelers, should be a Hall of Famer in my eyes. One of our better receivers, Steeler receivers in all of franchise history. They're going to play their games at the Alamo Dome. They have some players on the roster you might recognize, but not necessarily, like Kalen Ballage, their punter's Brad Wing. There isn't a lot of Arlington players that I know offhand, outside of maybe their punter Marquette King and their quarterback Kyle Slaughter. But moving on from them, the Houston Roughnecks are another team. They're coached by Wade Phillips, former Cowboy head coach, defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans at one point. He knows Texas. They have also really no players that I recognized. I don't know any of their quarterbacks. They're a pretty unknown roster to me. Like, it's not a team that I know a whole lot about. The Las Vegas Vipers are a team that I know a little bit about. They're coached by Rod Woodson. He was a Steelers cornerback in the day. He's awesome. They have a pretty dope offensive coordinator as well. His name's Dwan Taylor. I'm a big fan of him. And they have one of the cooler assistants in the entire league. He's famous for his 2018 Browns Hard Knocks clip. He's the offensive line coach for the Browns that year. He was the big old fat guy yelling "Set Hut," Bob Wiley. They have a former Steelers wide receiver, and there's a lot of Steelers connections that I'm noticing. Sorry, I'm a Steelers fan. Martavis Bryant. It's a name that some people would recognize, but that'll be an interesting team to watch. Orlando Guardians, they're head coached by Terrell Buckley. I don't really love that the XFL just moved the Guardians from New York to Orlando. They updated their logo, and it looks cooler now. It doesn't look as bland and not as good. I like the neon color that they added to it, but still not the biggest fan. I don't really like this team at all, personally. The DC Defenders, their head coach is Reggie Barlow. Their defensive coordinator is Greg Williams, famously known for his scandal with the Saints in 2009, where they were paying players to hurt other players. Yeah. They have a deep quarterback room, and they're my team going into this XFL season. I'm a Steelers fan. There's not really any Steelers connections to this team, but I am picking the DC Defenders. They're close to where I'm from. They have a deep quarterback room. De'Aaron King is a quarterback I like. He was an athlete in college at the University of Miami and Houston. Eric Dungy was a quarterback at Syracuse. He's another quarterback that I liked in college as well. Literally drafted him in Madden in the 7th round to be my franchise quarterback every year I played Madden because he was an athlete. And Jordan Tayamu, who dominated the XFL in 2020 and was the second best quarterback in a lot of people's eyes. This is a team I really like just because of the quarterback room, and that quarterback room has depth and versatility. All three of these quarterbacks could be on the field at the same time, and that's crazy. But there's one more team in this league. The Seattle Sea Dragons. They're a team that intrigues me a lot. Their head coach is Jim Haslett. Their offensive coordinator is June Jones. He's known for his very pass-heavy offense called run and shoot. And they have a quarterback that I love, but I could not pick them to be my team. Quarterback is Ben Naducci. TikTok famous Ben Naducci. And I don't know if anybody in here is claiming this team, but they're a good team.
We are. Yeah, he's our team. Only West Coast representative, and I mean it's Ben DiNucci. Like you have to put some respect on his name. And sorry, but but I think Kalen Balazs, put some respect on his name too. He is unknown for everyone else, but for those who follow college football, he has the NCAA record for most touchdowns scored in a game. Has 8 of them. Thanks. Patrick Mahomes. That was a crazy game. That's when I fell in love with football. But yeah, no. But I mean, so you said you're DC?
Yes.
You're DC Defenders?
Yes.
I'm Seattle Sea Dragons. Micah, you got a team? Got a team in mind?
Oh yeah. OU roots. Watched this guy coach for years since I was a little kid. The Arlington Renegades. Of course, I had to go with Bob Stoops. I mean, the man's a legend, and he's gonna do amazing things. Also, I saw that a bunch of OU players are jumping into the XFL. I'm hoping that they go to Bob Stoops, and if they play under Bob Stoops, I mean that's just one reunion waiting to happen. So I mean, I'm looking forward to the XFL season. Arlington Renegades.
As I was looking at my paper, there is one team that I missed. The St. Louis Battlehawks. I think that they might be the worst team in the league, and that's a hot take. That's a hot take. I think they might be the worst team in the league. They have defenders that I like. I don't think they have a great offense. I think they might be cursed at quarterback. I think this is a league where you have to have a quarterback that can move. I think all the other teams have that. I think this team lacks that outside of maybe Manny Wilkins. But he just got there. So is he going to be ready to play? Maybe not. But I do know one thing. They're going to have one of the best fan bases in the entire league. They did in 2020. They will again. The caw cries will be raining down heavy when you play in St. Louis. But I think they might be the worst team in the league. But with that being said, there are some interesting rules I'd like to hit on and get maybe your guys' opinion on as well. Like, this is a rule they're bringing back, and I think you guys I would like this rule. It's the tiered extra point rule, where you get a point or 2 or 3 based on where you line up to do your extra point. They don't kick extra points as like field goals. They just run a regular play. So if you line up at the 2-yard line, you can get 1 point. If you convert from the 5-yard line, you get 2 points. And if you convert from the 10-yard line, you get 3 points. It's a rule I love. You got to be pretty ballsy to be going for 3-pointers a lot. But when you need them in a swing, you can have a 9-point swing like that. And you can maybe run a trick play because one of their rules is a double forward pass as long as your first completion does not cross the original line of scrimmage. The 3-point play was not all that successful in the last stint of the XFL from what I remember. I don't really remember a lot of people converting it. But a lot of people ran the 2-point conversion play and did convert it, and it did swing games. It's a rule I like. I don't know how you guys feel about either one of those rules, but
Is the offside kick rule still?
yes, that is another rule. So they do have the kick rule is still the same. The onside kick rule, where they run a 4th and 15 conversion instead of kicking an onside kick. They actually have the option to kick an onside kick now or run a 4th and 15 from their 25, and then they get the ball from there. Another little interesting rule is the clock in this is very weird. So outside of the final 2 minutes of each half, if it's an incomplete pass, the clock will not stop. And if it's an out-of-bounds play, the clock will not stop. The clock will only stop after a first down after the 2-minute warning if you go out of bounds or you get a first down. Like, that's interesting to me because that's like going to make those final 2 minutes of those games, like if you score inside those 2 minutes and you leave too much time, there could be a real swing. But these are going to be fast-paced games, which I think is good for the product. And you won't have to wait long during halftime to see action because in the NFL, I think it's a 13-minute halftime. The XFL is doing 10 minutes. So these teams don't have that long to adjust either. They have to adjust on the fly. So these games are going to be quick. I think it's good for the game. I'm very much looking forward to the XFL this third stint with The Rock as the owner. That being said, I do believe that wraps up all of our sports for the day. We'll move into our rank 3. I don't know who wants to go first in this category, but today for rank 3, we are doing Marvel movies. Specifically, any movie that isn't considered an Avengers film is up for grabs in this rank 3. I don't necessarily feel as confident with my 3 because I'm not fully decided yet. I don't know if anybody else is actually fully decided and would like to go first. I will throw that out there for whoever wants to grab it first. Nate decided he would like to go first with our Marvel movie edition of rank 3. Oh, we're going 3 games. I like that.
I mean, yeah, oh, shoot. The camera's off-centered, so I have to figure out. There we go. But, yeah, so for my rank 3, I think 3 obvious one. I think it's got to be in there. I don't know if it ranks as high on some people as others, but I really like Black Panther. From the design, from the costumes, from the music, I think it was all done really well. I was in between that and Shang-Chi because Shang-Chi was another really great story. Kind of like it was disconnected for a while when they made both of them. So like it was trying to figure out what to do with the story. But I really liked both of those movies. I went with Black Panther just because I think I like the music a little more. I'm a big Kendrick guy.
So Shang-Chi maybe your honorable mention.
Yeah, Shang-Chi's my honorable mention. I like that. Shang-Chi's my honorable mention.
I'd like to give it some credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent film. Number 2, I think Civil War. Captain America Civil War. That is probably one of the better movies because I asked about it before the show if it was an Avengers movie. I wasn't sure because it was kind of, all the Avengers fighting each other. But you get the introduction of Spider-Man. You get other great moments of the film, and it was just super cool to watch that one. So Civil War is my 2. Number 1, this is probably the one where people lost their minds the most. Like outside of the end game where everybody lost all sense of their bodies. But in this one, there was a lot of rumors. There was a lot of things where like, is this going to be in there? Is this not going to be in there? Are these actors going to be in there? Are these actors not going to be in there? But yeah, it was probably one of the bigger movies that Marvel has ever put out. And the movie after that was a big disappointment, Multiverse of Madness. But the movie before that, No Way Home, is probably my number one non-Avengers Marvel movie. They just did such a great job integrating everybody back in, and I think they did great. I'm excited to see what this new Spider-Man is going to bring.
Micah, you want to go next, or you want me to go?
I can go.
You want to go?
Sure.
I love that list, by the way.
Why not?
Spider-Man No Way Home being one. I was actually about to the reason I was so hesitant to even get on the mic is I was about to ask, do you have the same number one? Because if so, we have to make that a god tier and have to.
Have we draft one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not your one, right?
It's not my one.
All right.
Is that your one?
It's not my one either.
Oh, okay.
I considered it though.
You're a big Spider-Man guy, so I thought you were going to lean there, but
I
it's
love
a great film.
As I rewatched it the other day, I think it's very conveniently and poorly written, but I loved it. But it's not my one.
I just totally forget about his war crimes. It's like 2 seconds in. Oh, trust me, kid. Like, you'll be fine.
They definitely could have hit on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
There we go. I forgot I had a mic.
I forgot we were on a podcast.
I was ready to go. I was like, no, I'm just gonna say it. Okay. I don't have. Okay, I guess I can do an honorable mention. Honorable mention would be Iron Man 1. That's a solid movie. Yeah, the OG. But for my third pick, I'm gonna go with Doctor Strange, the first one. He said Multi Madness. I was like, oh, okay, that's not that bad. But I like Doctor Strange, the first one, a lot better. I'd agree with that. My second one was Thor Ragnarok. I'm a huge Thor fan, so I had to throw that in there. They decided to ruin it with Love and Thunder when that came out, but at least they had a good one right before it. So I'll take that. And my number one, because we were talking about this before, and the soundtrack is amazing. I'm gonna go with Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. That's my number one pick. So, I mean, you can't get a better soundtrack.
I forgot about the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. Love that
Good
movie.
stuff.
I watched the intro to that movie like 5 times. Love it.
I'm still on the fence, quite a bit actually, on certain movies. I'm still very much I came into this list thinking it was gonna be easy. As you guys have talked, I really have no idea where I even lean with 1, 2, 3, or even an honorable mention at this point.
It's a good thing we were not picking TV shows too, because in that case,
Yeah, I got some hot takes.
Yeah.
well, I mean, you don't like Moon Knight, so that's.
We should probably save that one.
We'll save it. We'll save it. It'll come later. After Loki 2, we'll probably.
After Secret Invasion.
Oh, Secret Invasion. We gotta do another episode.
With that being said, Loki did slap. Secret Invasion's gonna be fire. Moon Knight, kind of trash. Come at me in the comments. I don't care. My honorable mention. Captain America Civil War. Honorable mention.
Wow. Okay. How good is this list?
I don't know how good this list is. I'm kind of going on the fly here. So honorable mention. Got to write it down because if I don't, I'll forget. Civil War. It's a great film. It's the introduction of Spider-Man. It builds up a lot. They built up all of that and then just kind of didn't really do a whole lot with the Sokovia Accords. It's the next time we really see them all together, it doesn't really matter. They're just kind of hey, we just agreed we got to stop this purple monster guy from destroying the entire planet. And they didn't. So that's why it's my honorable mention, because they could have definitely drugged that Sokovia Accord thing out for a long time. They didn't. I feel like they just kind of threw it in there because they wanted there to be a beef and then be separate sides for the Infinity War movie. but they introduced Spider-Man and Ant-Man meets the Avengers in that film. It's a great film, but definitely not on my top 3. It's a tough one. This is tough.
Even with 3?
This is tough with 3. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is my 3.
Ooh.
I'm a big fan of that film. I think it's great. It's hot. It's a hot take, but people hated it. But like, I enjoy Sam Raimi's directing style. Like, I grew up on the first Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire trilogy. I watched I think it's The Evil Dead. I think that's what he did. Like, yeah, I think that might be. It's one of those zombie weird franchises that he does.
I did not put that movie in there just because, I mean, the first Mexican superhero's power is crossing borders. I mean, it's kind of funny, but there's a reason why it was not on my list. I'm just gonna be real here.
Never thought about it like that. I am not racist for liking that movie. Just so we're clear. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. I did not think about that at all. That's actually kind of wild that MCU did that. Is Kevin Feige?
Just slipped it in there.
Yeah. Is Kevin Feige racist? They could have had a Mexican superhero before this, right?
No, he made a second Black Panther. He can't be racist.
All right. My number 2 is Spider-Man No Way Home. I had to put it up there. It's kind of, it's one of the better Marvel films that ever really happened because you get the nostalgia. I feel like they leaned into nostalgia just a little bit too hard, maybe, and that was their whole focus of the film. But then again, that's a massive project to keep that secret. Like, people thought it was a possibility, but it was never confirmed until the movie dropped. And people lost their mind. I was one of those people. I spoiled the whole movie in advance for myself and almost everybody else in this room, actually. Yeah. So, but it's my 2. Because my number 1 is Captain America Winter Soldier. It introduced us to the Russo brothers as directors in the MCU. Their directing style. I feel like that movie kind of really set up Civil War, but that they were still like aftermath of that movie, well after Civil War, like well after. Like, SHIELD's still really not a thing, or is it? Did Samuel L. Jackson really die, or did he get replaced by a Skrull in that movie, and he went off into space in that movie? It's tough to tell. I don't think those questions will ever be answered. That is one of my favorite films of all time, though, because I just love Captain America. Like, in general, I love those storylines, so that is my number 1. How do you guys feel about that list right there? Solid list? You guys really made me nervous when I put Civil War as an honorable mention. You guys were like, "Wow, this guy's list is going to be cheap." Like, all right, good. I feel better now. Good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's in the first half. Not gonna lie. I'm just gonna be real. But yeah, you redeemed yourself with Winter Soldier.
Okay, good. I feel like that's one of the better MCU films of all time. Like, just because, like, that's the first introduction. Like, now when you look back on it, it's probably like bland and boring, but like that's because like we've seen the Russo brothers create other major stuff that's definitely better. But at the same time, it's like that was their first introduction to the MCU. I love it. With that being said, there's not really much else to really discuss here. So we appreciate every single one of you guys that watch and listen every single week. We are excited for next week. We have no idea what we're going to talk about next week. Hopefully Derek Carr signs somewhere before then, so we have some NFL stuff to talk about. But we will hit on some XFL stuff. There'll be maybe some NBA stuff to talk about. All-Star Weekend. Exciting. Yeah. NBA three-point contest. A terrible dunk contest, but Mac McClung might. Hey. He might.
Actually, Mac McClung is in the NBA now. He is on a 2-way contract with the 76ers.
Had to happen. Literally had to happen because it would make the NBA look really bad if we have a G League player dunking in the dunk contest. But glad he's now officially in the NBA Good for Mac. A little round of applause for Mac McClung. He'll never see that, but that being said, we appreciate you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it. We will see you next week. Peace.